good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you guys on this beautiful Wednesday, the 4th of February 2024, with 40 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. East African time. Coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. Thank you for the few of you that managed to be part of our broadcast last night as we did the watch along for the game between Chelsea and Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium in the second leg of the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. So, well, we all know by now that Arsenal turned out triumphant on the night, beating Chelsea by a goal to nil thanks to that last-minute strike from Kai Havertz. And Arsenal do advance to the finals of the of the Carabao Cup for the first time since 2018. Huge, really significant in Arsenal's pursuit for silverware because they've not won anything. They've not won anything since 2020. So we'll be digesting that game and among other talking points for the purposes of this broadcast. But I hope you're well. I can see this is Isabella Martin is back with us already. Good morning to you. I don't know if it's a good morning on your end, but it's 9 a.m. right here in Kampala. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for choosing Football Tribe UG and for choosing to roll with us for our different broadcasts. So yeah, the gist will be my favorite live. All right, incredible. Nice to hear that we do make your day. Sorry about that. Just having something checked out briefly before we get in this morning's conversation. But also, I needed to have our audience tested just to make sure everything does check out practically well before we proceed. We're going to look at how both teams assembled themselves, how both teams behaved over the course of 90 minutes or 96 minutes, depending on which way you look at it. But we'll say 90 minutes. But yeah, it was a very, very controlled game. Both teams according the other a lot of respect, given not just the significance of the game and things like that. So yeah, I thought both teams has fielded a very strong starting lineups, like I had predicted. Kepa Arrizabalaga would have been in goal. Ben White did not get the chance to play at right back because Mikel Arteta went for Julian Timber. I wasn't too surprised because I told you guys it was going to be a very, very significant game for him. Then two, at left back, he went for Pierre Hincapié, who I thought did tremendously well in that game, ahead of Ricardo Carafiori, who I thought he would, start with. But perhaps it all paid out because I remember watching moments in that game and I thought to myself, or perhaps Ricardo Carafiori would have been losing his head here and maybe committing some silly foul here and there. But anyways, that wasn't the case. So, so in terms of assembling their respective teams, Arsenal had Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal, Julian Timber at right back, Pierre Hincapié at left back, the pairing of Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba, who, by the way, have now 20 clean sheets in 38 games across all competitions this season. That's as many as they had, I think, in about 58 or 53 games last season. So it's quite an improvement on this Arsenal backline and their defensive solidity. In midfield, it was the pair of Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice, with Zubimendi playing more as the 8, and then Ebelechi Eze. In addition to that, while it was Gabriel Martinelli, Noni Madueke, and Victor Gyökeres who started up front for the Gunners. On the side of Chelsea, they had a very conservative team. Will I dye my hair red? I hope not. That is Sino Bueno. Sino Bueno. Sino Bueno or Bueno, for those of you that are not particular to that comment or privy to the facts of that comment, he took a bet. He's a Chelsea fan. He took a bet with some of his cousins, I think, or brothers or something like that, that if Arsenal win the Premier League title, he will have to tint his hair red, to dye it red. to signify, that he's lost a bet, and then also to paint it in Arsenal colors. As the season draws closer to, as the season takes one of its first bends towards the end, it does increasingly look like, Sino Bono, you'll have to swallow a bitter pill and dye that hair red. So do prepare yourself for that. Anyways, so yeah, on the side of Chelsea, Liam Rafinha went for defensive solidity and compactness to try and limit the Arsenal damage, because in the manner in which both teams played, they knew very well that either of them needed to avoid conceding an early goal, because if Chelsea conceded an early goal, they knew it would then be a whole mountain climb, perhaps bigger than they already had to do in going to the Emirates Stadium. And if the reverse was true, then Arsenal knew that then it was going to make the game even more difficult for them, because it would have given Chelsea more confidence that they were going to go through this. Yes, I'm keeping my words. Well, we'll have to wait and see. There's still a bit of time to go. We still have 14 games to play in the Premier League, and anything can happen. You can only keep to your prayers and hope that perhaps Arsenal commit a halwa, do the unthinkable, and concede that Premier League title, even though it's not my individual wish or prediction. Anyways, so Chelsea went for a back three with Robert Sanchez, of course, in goal. They had Wesley Fofana, Trevor Chalobah, and who was the other guy in that back line? Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on. That name is eluding me. The other Chelsea centre back, because it was a back three for Chelsea. Yes, Jorel Hato, the summer signing from Ajax. And then they went for wing backs in Marco Correa on the left and Malo Gusto on the right. Then a compact midfield of Moises Caicedo, Andre Santos, and Enzo Fernandez, Joao Pedro, and Liam Delap, in a kind of setup that felt like Liam Delap was literally playing on the wing, which did not really work out for them. Like I said, in the game itself, it felt very controlled. Both teams were not giving much away. In fact, Arsenal only had one shot on target in the first half. And I think equally, Chelsea had one shot on target in that first half. For Arsenal's shot on target, it came through Piero Hincapié, who tested Robert Sanchez, but he was alert to the challenge. And on the other side, it was Enzo Fernandez who tested Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal with a shot from distance. In the end, both teams had two shots on target. I think I struggle to remember who the other shot on target for Chelsea came from, but for the Arsenal, of course, it was Kai Havertz, who scored very late on in the game to win the game by 1-0 for the Arsenal. You said Delap is not the sharpest tool in the shed. Indeed, Delap is far from sharp. I think he struggled through his debut campaign with Chelsea. First of all, he's a kind of player who has a profile of a good player, the physique, the height, the runs and everything like that. But things have not happened for him. Of course, two injuries in his debut campaign with Chelsea have not helped his adaptation towards playing with Chelsea. So he's lacked that bit of consistent, game time in there. Isabella says, well, I'm going to sleep. Good night to you, Isabella. Thank you so much for always sparing a moment to be with us. You always appreciate it, really. So, indeed, Liam Delap is still struggling. It's a game in which Joao Pedro, I thought, did not compete favorably well physically. On a number of occasions, it felt like he gave away easily to the physical duels from William Saliba or Gabriel Magalhaes. Yet on the other side, Liam Delap, I thought, physically did well to try and trouble Gabriel Magalhaes. Then, it was really hard to pick out standout players in such a very controlled game. It was a slow-paced game. Both teams giving the other the deserved respect. Both teams being not overly committal to the challenge of going forward, because they knew that going forward could come at the cost of leaving yourself open at the back. The referee managed the game really well. It was in the second half where you felt the game had started to slip out of hand for him, and yet he managed to somehow regain control over it. There's a moment where it feels like he was dishing out one too many yellow cards. In that he dished one to Malo Gusto. Liam did get himself booked with one. So and I think William Estaval also got himself into the referee's book. So in that moment, particularly of William Estaval, that's where you do have that sort of feeling that perhaps the game was getting out of hand. There, he's our Harry. Oh, he's our your Hurricane. Really? Well, let's hope it does live to the billing or the expectations of that. But for now, it's not looking likely or the case. So I thought I was really, really impressed by Trevor Chaloba. I thought he did well in that defense. He kept things clean. He fought physically well with Victor Gyökeres. I looked at Enzo Fernandez. He tried to stand out in in Chelsea's offense, although sometimes you felt he overdid it. He he was the guy that made it look desperate for Chelsea, that they desperately needed that goal with all his attempts. Malo Gusto, I thought he really, really did well against Andoni Madueke. He kept him largely quiet or less impactful compared to what he had been in the weekend against Leeds United. Then Declan Rice ran his legs off in that midfield. In the end, he provided the assist that turned out to for Kai Havertz. Then Gabriel Martinelli had a moment, had a chance, but again, Malo Gusto did well to recover. And then he had two opportunities. Gabriel Martinelli, one in which he goes through from a long pass from I think Kepa Arrizabalaga, and now instead of putting in the cross for Victor Gyökeres to run to, he decided to go for the cutback, and this cutback eluded I think Ebeleche Eze and I think Declan Rice, who are just arriving in the box, and Arsenal wasted that chance. Then the other opportunity still fell to Gabriel Martinelli himself, and then Malo Gusto put in the block, so they recovered well on that occasion. So it was that. For those of you that are just joining us, welcome back. Welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. My name is Robert Kesakos, and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. That's where I'm streaming live from, and it's 51 minutes past 9 a.m. East African time, in case you're wondering. Thank you for joining us. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it is your first time here. So I thought, like I said, it was a very, very controlled game. Both teams not want to give away a lot. Chelsea went for that bit of composure, that bit of compactness, looking to catch Arsenal on the break, and they look to change things at after the 1 hour mark, perhaps to try and get in, those forward players that could provide them the width that they really, really lacked in the first 1 hour with the introduction of. William Estaval for Jorel Hato, Cole Palmer in that midfield, attacking midfield role to try and provide, those line-breaking passes. And then later on, Alejandro Garnacho, who came on for Andre Santos, while Joshua Achepong, came on for Malo Gusto. That was a defensive change. So there was a bit of a shift in team setup once they introduced Cole Palmer and William Estaval, because that meant Kukorea went backwards. Wesley Fofana and Trevor Chaloba remaining in that pivot, and then in that pivot of the back line. And then when they withdrew Malo Gusto, that was a direct swap for Joshua Achepong. So and then Andre Santos, like I said, was withdrawn for Alejandro Garnacho to provide Chelsea with the width for William Estaval and Garnacho. And then you had the Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez with Cole Palmer in there, and then Joao Pedro. But in the end, they still could not find a way to harm this Arsenal side. Now, in the build-up to this particular game, I told those who care to listen that the advantage about this Arsenal side is that whatever sort of questions you bring to them, they have the answers for them. If you try to come with, if you want to dominate possession the way Chelsea did, I think they dominated possession to the tune of about 55% or 56% compared to Arsenal's 44%. They are okay relinquishing a possession to you. If you go with the counter-attacking game, they know how to counter that. If you want to leverage on set pieces, if you're good with set pieces, they know how to try and counter that, and things like that, really, largely. So in yesterday's game, I also so they had no problem with Chelsea having majority of the ball for as long as they Arsenal remained committed to disrupting play, because it literally boiled down to that both teams denied each other that momentum that you would have in a game to try and go for it. Chelsea tried to build that momentum in the last 10 minutes of the game as they really, really pushed for it, and you could feel the nerves within that Arsenal crowd. You could feel the nerves within that Arsenal team, that it was starting to feel a bit rushed, a little bit panicky for them as they tried to keep Chelsea at bay. But in the end, they managed to find the composure to literally keep them at bay. And then in the last very dying minutes, Chelsea win the ball back. It goes to Marco Correa, who tries to go for a long pass to try and find Trevor Chalobah, because at that point, Chelsea were committing so many numbers up front. And in attempting to find Trevor Chalobah, that's where I think it was Piero Hincapié wins the ball back with the header. He heads it to Leandro Trossard, who passes it to Declan Rice, who is in open space in the channel. I think he had Wesley Fofana in frame. He goes for the long pass for Kai Havertz, who was making the run in for the counter alongside Gabriel Martinelli. Martinelli runs himself in space to try to be found by Kai Havertz, but he chose to go in and around Kepa Arrizabalaga and slots that ball in the back of the net. BK trailed. Is that okay? BK, bro, no fair. I'm literally at Chelsea. I'm a Chelsea fan, bro. Hell nah, man, no fair. Indeed, I understand where you're coming from as a Chelsea fan, but BK, thank you so much for joining the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel, since it's my first time seeing you here. But hard luck, Team Chelsea. Then Uma Salam. Hi to you. Good morning. Welcome to the channel as well. So then this is Tugume Goodson saying Arsenal Jew. Hi Tugume, good morning. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel as well. So the things that we took note of that or in that game, again it came to the realization that perhaps Arsenal's biggest weakness could arguably be their biggest strength in that very game. And what do I mean by that? Arsenal do have, because one of their weaknesses in this Arsenal side is that they do not have that outright goal scorer, that reliable figure that they are looking on towards every now and then to try and score for them goals. Now, how do they compensate with that? By having many game winners, many goal scorers. So where they lack a main goal scorer, they compensate with having multiple match winners. For example, this time around, it was a second half substitute. Kai Havertz was the match winner, scoring for the second time ever since his return from injury. Remember, the first time he scored was against Kairat Almaty, and then we saw him start in the game against Leeds over the weekend. And then over the weekend, you remember it was Martin Zubimendi and Noni Madueke that literally won Arsenal that game, because Zubimendi scores first and then Noni Madueke scores second. And then for Victor Yokeres's goal and that of Gabriel Jesus, it was a mere icing on the cake. Othanzi says hi Othanzi. I hope I pronounced your name all right. So that's what really we saw. It was that Kai Havertz at a moment that separated the two sides. So you do have multiple game winners in that Arsenal backline. You remember in the London Derby against Tottenham Hotspur, it was Ebeleche Eze. Against Crystal Palace in their 1-0 victory, it was Ebeleche Eze. When you go to the game against West Ham United, I think it was Declan Rice that won them that game. You remember on match day 1, away to Old Trafford against Manchester United, it was Ricardo Carafiori that scored to win them that game. You remember away to Newcastle, it was Gabriel Magalhaes who scored the winning goal with Mikel Merino scoring the equalizer in that one. You remember against Manchester City at the Emirates Stadium in a 1-1 draw, it was Gabriel Martinelli that rescued a point for the Arsenal side. So they've had multiple goal scorers in their goals being literally distributed across the entire squad. And I did say it was a huge positive for the Arsenal to welcome back Kai Havertz because of what he brings, because of the multiple positions he can play. We saw that against Kairat Almaty and against Leeds United, he was being played as an attacking midfielder. And yet yesterday he came on in place of Victor Gyökeres as the target back, and he ended up delivering. So that's the kind of Arsenal that you have to deal with. It's not to say that they cannot be beaten. It's simply to say that you're going to have to really, really be as good as Aston Villa, perhaps in that first leg, as good as Man United recently at the Emirates Stadium, if you're going to beat them. And once in a while, perhaps you could get lucky and go with the Wilder, like we saw them lose at Anfield against Liverpool, thanks to that brilliant free kick from Dominic Szoboszlai. And in a nutshell, those are the only games they've lost throughout the entire season so far, at least until this stage. And then, of course, they've had multiple draws. So when like I said, they seem equipped, a well-equipped team to deal with all sorts of situations that you may present them. Every kind of game approach that you bring to them, whether you're going to slow it down, whether you because in the first 1 hour, Chelsea kept it a bit slow, and they were okay. Arsenal are okay with that. If you want to dominate the ball, they are okay with you doing that. They will leave it to you and just disrupt your play. If you want to leverage on set pieces, we know that they're starring centre backs in Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba. You have a Pierre Hincapié there, all players that are averaging at least 6 feet tall. That also helps. So they're good in defending the set pieces themselves. Then we saw Chelsea deploy a strategy similar to that of what Monaco deployed in the UEFA Champions League last season, as they lost to Arsenal by 3-0 at the Emirates Stadium. Every time Arsenal won a corner, Monaco decided to commit players up front to limit Arsenal's numbers in the opponent's box. And that's basically what Chelsea did yesterday. They committed 3 players up front, which forced Arsenal to push some players back to help defend, because usually the tactic or the plan with that tactic is that you hope or you take a chance on yourself that your goalkeeper is going to come and gather that corner, and as soon as he gathers it, he's going to throw it over, to your players that you have up front to go on a counter-attack and score. Now, unfortunately for them, for Chelsea, they never got to see that moment happen. It never came for them, even though Arsenal managed to have Arsenal only had 2 corners, Chelsea had 5. So eventually, it could not pay off in the way they had thought. But I thought it was an effective way of doing it. Nonetheless, they almost conceded from a corner. That was Chelsea. I think, was it Jurriën Timber that got his head to the ball? Then on another occasion, it's Chelsea defending at the corner, and then the resultant ball falls to Pierre Hincapié before he forces Robert Sanchez into that save. So that's so those were some of my observations from that game between the two sides. Like I said, not many chances were created. So as the game wore on, of course, Chelsea started to realize we no longer have much to lose. We ought to commit. We ought to go for it with all the offensive substitutions that had been made. They had to go for it. And in the end, that's what left them vulnerable to conceding that. Now, I've had some pundits, they praised Liam Marcinia for keeping it controlled, for keeping it managed for the first half. On the other side, you have those who are of the school of thought that you're already 3-2 down in aggregate. You ought to go for it and push to try and get, the goals. And the only way you do that is by having many attackers on the pitch, as opposed to you trying to have a bit of control and overly defensive. Godfrey says, hi, Godfrey. P6, yes, I hope you're doing okay. Thanks for joining the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it's your first time here. So the question is, was Liam Marcinia naive, or was he bold? Now, like he said in his post-match press conference, if it works out, he's a genius. If it doesn't work out like it did, then you know everybody thinks that you got it wrong. I've always said this or stressed this that it's easier for us football fans, pundits, commentators to judge these managers when whatever ideas they try to implement on the pitch do not work out. When they work out, then we think they are genius. And he said this in his post-match press conference. He said, and this was Liam Ross Sr. He said, if I go and attack the game, press really, really high, and we concede 2 early goals, everyone asks, what is he doing? What's he doing? That's the reality of this job. If you lose, you're criticized. If you win, you're a genius. And he couldn't have been more spot on. He knew that if he overcommitted, if he goes for that high press to try and win the ball back, that Arsenal are capable of playing throughout of that high press, and it would leave them vulnerable. And that if they concede 2 early goals, then it's going to be more than a mountain for you to climb against an opponent who is already leading the tally by 3 goals to 2 on aggregate until that stage. So he decided, no, instead of us conceding early, we'll try and keep it controlled. We'll try to stay in the game. We'll try to cause moments of disruptions whenever we can. And then in the second half, we'll bring on all our firepower, having understood or seen where the weaknesses are or where the gaps are that we can try to exploit in that Arsenal system. And of course, on the bench, you also had Willian Esteban, who had in the last 72 hours traveled from the UK, gone to Brazil and returned. I do not know particularly what happened. Some reports did indicate that the grandmother was ill. In a message from Enzo Fernandez, he did wish his condolences. That means somebody had passed on. Everybody, they considered Liam Ross Sr. had said in the pre-match press conference that he was on compassionate leave. So really, I do not think he would have started that game. Why? Because we know the jet lag that comes with traveling more than maybe close on to 14 hours to go to Brazil. Excuse me, things we've experienced during international duty. So for me, that was the kind of game. Arsenal worked for it to get to the finals. And yeah, in beating Chelsea home and away by 4 goals to 2 on aggregate, they do advance to their first final of the Carabao Cup since 2018. In 2018, they reached the final and lost to Manchester City with Sergio Kun Aguero, Vincent Kompany, and David Silva scoring in that game to deny Arsenal the opportunity to win a trophy, which was essentially Pep Guardiola's first trophy with that team that had Claudio Bravo. Of course, they had the likes of Ilkay Gundogan in that Manchester City setup or team that played in that final. You had you had players like Nicolas Otamendi, players like Danilo, Kyle Walker, Fernandinho. Then you had players like Leroy Sané, Kevin De Bruyne, Gabriel Jesus was still playing for Man City, Bernardo Silva. On the Arsenal side, you had players like David Ospina, Shkodran Mustafi, Laurent Koscielny, Nacho Monreal, Granit Xhaka, Aaron Ramsey, Hector Bellerin, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Jack Wilshere, players like that, Mesut Ozil. So that's the team that lost. And then, of course, we know that they had made it to the final back in 2011 when they lost to Birmingham City. That's, I think, the last final that literally everybody thought that Arsenal were going to finally win the Carabao Cup or Carling Cup, as it was called at the time. For the first time since 1993 when they beat up against Sheffield Wednesday by 2 goals to 1 in the final. But that opportunity did not turn out the way Arsene Wenger had envisioned, because they lost by 2 goals to 1 against Birmingham City. Then you have to rewind back to 2007 when they lost to Chelsea by 2 goals to 1 in the final. I think it was Theo Walcott that scored against Peter Cech for Arsenal's goal. I don't, excuse me, apologies for the yawning. I do not remember who the goal scorers were for Chelsea. Was it Frank Lampard and Didier Drogba? All I remember is that during those days, Arsene Wenger was always intent on fielding more, oftentimes young players, to try and develop them. And regardless of how far they got in the competition, he never denied them the opportunity. While Chelsea remained committed to the grit, they would field their best team on any given day to try and win that fixture. So yeah, that's it's a competition that Manchester City won for, I think, 4 consecutive times. Was it 4? No, 3 consecutive years under Pep Guardiola. Yeah. Because they had won it in 2016. In 2016, they beat Liverpool in the final, but that was under Manuel Pellegrini. So 2017, Man United won it, beating Southampton 3-2. So Man City win it 2018, 2019, and 2020, beating Chelsea in one of those in post-match penalties, and also beating Aston Villa 2-1 in 2020. In fact, 4 consecutive times, including 2021, because in 2021, that's when they beat Tottenham Hotspur. Remember, they sacked Jose Mourinho about a couple of days before the final, so they lost that one by 1-0. I think Ilkay Gundogan scored in that one. Then in 2022, Liverpool won it. They beat Chelsea in the final. Same applied to 2024. Liverpool won it. They still beat Chelsea in the final. Then Man United won it in 2023, beating Newcastle by 2-0 in the final. Casemiro was among the goal scorers in that one, and Marcus Rashford maybe. Then in 2025, we know Newcastle are the reigning champions. Speaking of which, Newcastle are in action today against Manchester City away to the Etihad Stadium. So those were my observations. Those were my takeaways from that game. Congratulations, Team Arsenal, to advancing on the final that will be played in Wembley on March 22. It will be a Sunday, March 22nd. It will be a Sunday. I've said this, that if Arsenal want to start winning trophies, if they need to build a winning mentality, they need to build that winning character. They need to show that, never die attitude. They need that character, and for you to build that character is by winning, by getting in finals. So like I said, this is their first final that they are going to play since 2020. When Mikel Arteta guided them to the finals of the FA Cup that they won by 2-0, thanks to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's goals. So really, so they get an opportunity to get to the final. Whether they win it, that remains to be seen, which for me, I think will be against Man City. Now, for me, here's the thing. Whether they win it or lose it, maybe beside the point. Of course, the better thing would be for them to win it. But the mere fact that they've failed to get to the final, which I think they need to do more consistently or more routinely, getting into finals, and then eventually you're able to win. Because the reason as why I also say that is particularly out of the 4 competitions that try to chase this year, 3 of them you have to get to the final to win them. That's the EFL Cup, which they've reached the final. The FA Cup, you need to get to the final to win it, and then the UEFA Champions League, you need to get to the final if you want to win it. So excuse me, it's only the Premier League title race where you do not need to get to the final. But also sometimes in the Premier League it can feel like a final, because from now on, for every game that Arsenal play, it's going to feel like a final for the last 14 games. But then also sometimes we've seen the Premier League title go down to the wire. Now, I've not seen it go down to the wire or to the final day of the season when both teams that are contesting for it are the ones facing each other. But we've seen it. I think the 2018-2019 Premier League season, when Man City won it with 98 points, with Liverpool finishing at 97. Then in 2021, 2022, no, yes, 2021, 2022, it went down to the wire. When Man City won it with 93 points and Liverpool finished with 92 points. Then in 2023, 2024 Premier League campaign, it went down to the wire when Man City won it with 2 points ahead of Arsenal. So, it's always going to be that. I think Man City were playing West Ham in the final game of that season. So it's not a final, but it can get there. So, but to be on the safer side, Arsenal will want to win their games and worry less about their Premier League title opponents, who are Man City, Aston Villa in that frame for now, as we get down to those things. Anyways, allow me move on from that. So allow me move on to the fixture that there is today, still in the other semi-final. But before I get to that other fixture, yesterday we had some other games other than the Carabao Cup semi-final between Chelsea. AC Milan beat up against Bologna by 3-0. Adrian Rabiot, Christopher Nkunku, and Robin Loftus-Cheek were the goal scorers, as AC Milan moved within 5 points behind the table leaders Inter Milan in the Italian Serie A. Remember, they are under the charges of Massimiliano Allegri. That's AC Milan. Then Barcelona beat up against Albacete by 2-1 in the quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey to advance to the semi-finals. Lamine Yamal, Ronald Araujo were the goal scorers, while Ferran Torres' goal was ruled out, which would have made it 3-1. Bayer Leverkusen beat up against St. Pauli by 3-0 in the DFB Pokal Cup semi-quarterfinals. In the Coupe de France, Reims put 3 past Le Mans, while Olympique Marseille also put 3 past Stade Rennes with Gouiri, and then Mason Greenwood and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, the goal scorers in that fixture. So moving on to today, there's plenty of action coming our way. Like I said, Man City are in action against Newcastle. Man City take a 2-0 lead in this particular fixture. Yes, they take a 2-0 lead in this particular fixture from the first leg at St. James's Park. So we know that Man City, like I said, have 1 foot in the final. So really, we know in that game that they managed to win, thanks to Anton Semenyo and Ryan Cherki. That Ryan Cherki goal in the 9th minute of stoppage time really gave Man City a significant advantage going into the second leg, because if it had finished 1-0, perhaps it would be more nervous for Man City. But now Newcastle go to the Etihad Stadium knowing that it's going to be a whole mountain to climb too. Now, Newcastle cannot afford to even think of being defensive. They have to go for it right from the onset to try and win it if they are to get back into it. While going for it, they must also avoid scoring, conceding on the other side. And the reason as to why I say that, if you're Newcastle and you're already 2 goals behind, what's the instance of trying to defend anyway? Just go for it. Hope that Anthony Gordon, that Yohan Wissa or Nick Voltmada, Anthony Elanga, Harvey Barnes are at the top of their game to give you something. In terms of their midfield, I do not know if Bruno Guimaraes is back. Jolinton was out through injury. Sandro Tonali, very decent player. Jamal Lascelles has left and gone to Leicester City. Joe Willock scored the equalizer in their 1-1 draw against PSG in the match day 8 of the UEFA Champions League. We know that Newcastle have a good team. We know they have a good team. When you look at players like Danban, when you look at players like Nick Pope in goal, Malik Thiaw, Lewis Hall, Lewis Miley, Kieran Trippier, Jacob Ramsey. Now, Jacob Ramsey has not really so far worked out, perhaps in the way they had hoped he would, pretty much as well as Anthony Elanga. That investment is yet to pay off. He's yet to find his footing in that team. So we'll have to wait and see. Then Man City on the other side, I expect them to field a very, very strong team. Maybe it may not be Gianluigi Donnarumma in goal. It could be Tommy Setford. We know that they let go of Stefan Ortega to join Nottingham Forest. Now, McKay is cap-tied, so we could see Max Alenia back in the starting backline alongside Kushanov, Matthias Nunes at right back, and then Ryan Atnori at left back, in the absence of Ruben Diaz and Joško Vadio. Then in that midfield, I would expect to see Nico Gonzalez alongside Bernardo Silva and Tijan Riendas. No, that's too conservative. I would go with Nico Gonzalez and Tijan Riendas and Phil Foden, then Antoine Semenyo, Jeremy Doku, and Brad Erling Haaland, of course. The one thing that Pep Guardiola will not do is be complacent against Newcastle. I don't think he will despise them whatsoever. Even though he has a good feeling about him that he can beat them, I think he will go with a very, very strong team. Unfortunately for Newcastle, I think Man City will win the game by 2-1 to complete a double against them, like they did against Arsenal at the same stage of the same competition last year. I do not think, my prediction for the Arsenal game had been a 2-1 victory, but that wasn't the perfect score. Arsenal only managed to win it by a goal to nil. So really, for me, those are my takes from there, or my expectations. Who wins the midfield battle? Guimaraes alongside Sandro Tonali and Jacob Ramsey could determine on who gets the sway in this game. I don't know why I'm over yawning, and yet I have my water. Anyways, I forgot to put up our poll question. Who do you think will advance to the finals? To the final of the Carabao Cup? I meant to put this one up earlier. Then option 1 is Man City. Option 2 is Newcastle. Like I've told you, Man City, Man City already have 1 foot in the final with that 2-0 lead. Yes, LFC says it's back. I was able to get up early. Okay. Anyway, there is a poll question. Do let me know who you think will advance to the finals in terms of that, a poll. There's a poll question on the broadcast or on the channel in regards to who do you think will advance to the final of the Carabao Cup. Is it Man City or is it going to be Newcastle? Do you think Newcastle can cause an upset? It's not unthinkable to think that Newcastle are capable of causing an upset, but this Newcastle side is not anywhere as good as the Newcastle we saw from last season. We've seen their struggles in the league, and yet Man City, they themselves, are equally been very inconsistent. And if there's any one time that you think you could beat up against Man City, this could be one of those big opportunities for you to try and do it. So yeah, but for me, I do fancy Man City to make it to the final. Okay, quickly, away from that, let's move on to Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace have a conundrum. They are caught between a rock and a hard stone. Guys, please take part in that poll. Do let me know what your prediction is. Man City or Newcastle, who will advance to the final? Now, Crystal Palace are caught between a hard stone and a rock because they wanted to move on Jean-Philippe Mateta, went in the market to Wolves and signed Jürgen Strand-Larsen, and Mateta's deal collapsed. Why? Because he failed his medical. AC Milan, who wanted to buy him found an issue in his knee and decided not to proceed with the purchase. And according to Sami Mokbel of BBC Sport, he says that all medical reports had been sent to AC Milan to try and aid the transfer. He says Crystal Palace sent AC Milan full medical report on Jean-Philippe Mateta ahead of the acceleration of his move. Mateta then failed medical over a knee issue, resulting in the deal collapsing. Player now faces a surgery dilemma ahead of the World Cup. Now, given his performances, not just season and perhaps prior to this season, Jean-Philippe Mateta would have hoped to be part of France's national team squad for that will be going for the World Cup 2026. Excuse me, World Cup 2026 in the USA. Of course, it's going to be hosted by USA, Canada, and Mexico. But so that means if he opts to go for surgery, he will definitely not make it for the World Cup. Why? Because I do not think he will have fully recovered on time for him to make it. Two, do you then risk the issue to exacerbate it in the long run just to play in the World Cup? I do not know. In any case, you could suffer from an anterior cruciate ligament injury and things like that. So it's not an easy place to be if you're Crystal Palace, if you're still Parish, because the proceeds from the sale, his proposed sale, were to aid Crystal Palace sign Dwight McNeil from Everton, and a deal had been agreed between the two clubs for £20 million to sign Dwight McNeil. But once Mateta's deal collapsed, then Crystal Palace tried to go back to Everton to say, we want to renegotiate the terms of this deal, to say we take James to take Dwight McNeil on loan until the end of the season, and then sign him permanently in the summer, something that Everton could not agree to that, and they decided the deal collapsed. And Crystal Palace expressed their sympathies with Dwight McNeil because Everton had put pen to paper on everything in regards to the deal sheet, but when that negotiation failed, the deal equally collapsed. So if you're Jean-Philippe Mateta, what do you do? And for Crystal Palace is, if they commit to doing the surgery now and the player undergoes through surgery, you do not know how long it's going to take him to recover. You know that by the time he recovers, it's going to be possibly 29, and that his price tag or price will have plummeted from what you thought it was there. So there's a number of issues or factors to consider for Jean-Philippe Mateta and France in a whole to try and get this kind of striker to away, because God knows they need the money, because then that means they have Jean-Philippe Mateta, Jürgen Strand-Larsen, and Eddie Nketiah as their strikers. So we'll have to wait and see how they go about that situation overall in one way or the other. Okay. Maybe briefly to go back to the Arsenal game, somebody asked me about this. There were 3 penalty appeals, a handball by Gabriel Martinelli, but his hand was close to his body in Chelsea's free kick. The other was the handball by Trevor Chalobah, but again, you could not give that. There was no intention in handing the ball during the defending of a set piece. Then the other was maybe the most clear one was Gabriel Martinelli versus Trevor Chalobah, because Gabriel Martinelli goes on the running. Trevor Chalobah times perfectly his tackle, gets the ball, but the fall through or the aftermath, he sticks his leg out to trip Gabriel Martinelli, who possibly could have gone on to lash onto that ball that was in no man's land or there for the taking to try and score. But the referee deemed that it was not a penalty, and VR supported his decision, saying it was a natural contact, from that after making that kind of challenge. However, I do want to state categorically that if that penalty had been given, I do not think Chelsea fans would have had too much qualm with that, or they would have contested that really largely, because Trevor Chalobah does stick his leg out to trip Gabriel Martinelli and prevent him from proceeding on that ball. So yeah, unless you have a divergent opinion on that matter, we'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, okay. Very, very interesting. Let's see if we can try and get some of Mikel Arteta's reaction or thoughts on that game. He said we've worked so hard to reach the final. Oh, Jesus Christ. I thought I would find a transcript, but turns out there's no transcripts. But yeah, Arsenal, I think, deserved to be in the final. Chelsea were deserving and worthy opponents for them in the semi-final. Really a huge test for both managers. And just imagine if Liam Rossini had won this fixture, what it would mean for him and his Chelsea career, you know? But of course, I said, it would have boiled down to the team that wanted it the more, and Arsenal proved that they wanted it the more. Okay, this is I understand that the transfer window did shut down yesterday, but yeah, that doesn't mean that the rumor mill stops. So Liverpool could rival. This is transfer gossip and speculation, and because we just wrapped up the January transfer window, so there's a bit an overflow of what teams could look to do. Liverpool could rival Manchester United and Real Madrid for the signing of Crystal Palace's Adam Wharton, only 21 years of age. Then Manchester United could make a move for long-term striker target Jean-Philippe Mateta. That's in the summer after the Frenchman's proposed move to AC Milan collapsed. That's according to the Mirror. AC Milan, Chelsea, and Newcastle are all interested in Serbian forward Dusan Vlahovic, 26, on a summer free transfer, even though he has recently returned to Juventus to complete his rehabilitation from an abductor in injury. That's according to Football Italia. Then Manchester United are looking to bolster their midfield. Newcastle's Italy international Sandro Tonali, 25, is of interest. Everton, now if I'm Man United, Sandro Tonali is an 8. Why sign another 8? Go for Bruno Guimaraes. Everton will open new offers for Everton will be open to new offers for Dwight McNeil, 26, after his deadline move to Crystal Palace collapsed, while Newcastle will resurrect a move for highly rated Reims Ivorian midfielder Patrick Zabi, 19, in the coming month. Then Leeds French goalkeeper Ilan Marsilia, at 25, could be set for a move away from Elland Road, with Turkish club Besiktas holding talks. That's according to Team Talk. And then German midfielder Leon Goretzka, who is out of contract at Bayern Munich in the summer, could be on his way to Arsenal on a free transfer. That's according to Bayern Insider, while West Ham can dismiss head coach Nuno Espirito Santo without paying compensation if they are relegated to the Championship. That's according to The Athletic. Nuno Espirito Santo getting sacked. If West Ham get relegated, then definitely they'll have no option but perhaps to get rid of Nuno Espirito Santo. But for me, I find him a very capable manager for a team of West Ham's caliber, even though this season has not gone their way so far. Okay. In the polls, 75% so far saying that Man City will advance to the final at the expense of Newcastle. So yeah. What else? Is there any issue we've not tackled on? I don't think so. In Uganda, the transfer window just opened. Why? Because we had disruptions to the start of the season. Then in January, we could not do the transfer window because we had yet to conclude with the first round of the Uganda Premier League. And because of that, FUFA, in wanting to avoid a player playing for two clubs against perhaps the same opponent in the first round, they decided that they will delay the transfer window until February, and it will close, I think, on the 2nd of March. So our player exchanges are going to be there. Vipers looking to find a replacement for Alan Okello, who has since joined Young Africans in Tanzania, and things like that. We'll wait and see how those teams do behave in as far as their transfer activity is concerned. Anyways, guys, it's been 55 minutes of doing this. But guys, for those of you that haven't yet, please go over to the channel under the video section and watch that video about Lodri's comments in the aftermath of their 2-2 draw against Tottenham Hotspur. The headline is "They don't want us to win." Lodri lashes out to Manchester City, and after Man City Tottenham draw. So those comments where he says that referees are supposed to be neutral, as if to determine or to suggest that Robert Jones, the match center referee from their game against Tottenham Hotspur, wasn't being neutral. Then there's also previously we did a video on Paul Scholes and Rio Ferdinand's comments. So then why I think Manchester United are wrong to let go of Casemiro and all that. Please go over to the channel under the video section and watch that. Leave me a comment down in the comment section and see, and we'll get to see where we can improve. Let me see in some of the comments we have already. Did you just bap in mid-sentence? Bap? What's bapping? Oh, bap like belch? No. And even if I did, that's a reflex action that you cannot control. So that's from Yared Mosi. So forgive the reflex. I think that's then somebody said clearly that should have been a foul on McKehy. Lodri lashed out because the referee and VR did not rule out one of Dominic Solanke's calls, particularly the first call where he fouls McKehy before going on to score that goal. So it's been one topic that has been widely discussed. I will look to do to find out more content on the channel. But guys, do not hesitate to subscribe to the channel. So we'll be putting out more in the coming days as we see fit or as the opportunity presents itself. I've reached out to a cohort of people requesting for some interviews, but I'm yet to get any. I'm hoping that we can get Ismail Dakabachi Gongo on the channel, hoping that we can have a moment with Aldrin Suga. The other person that I reached out to, they simply liked my message and did not say a thing. So it's been that. It's been that really. It's been a bit difficult that way, but we'll keep positive. We'll keep hopeful that things will work out. So this is TY Edit says hi. LFC, always a pleasure. Godfrey, thank you so much. Othanzi, Othanzi. Then Tugume, Goodson, Uma Salam, BK. This is BK Tire. BK Tire. Oh, BK, thank you so much. Sino Buedo, thank you so much. Chelsea fan there. And Isabella Martini, thank you so much for always choosing to be part of our broadcasts on your favorite football update channel. That's at Football Tribe UG. It's your love and support that give me the zeal to keep going. You're the guys that encourage me to get up every single morning and come and do what we love here and come and do and give you the best. Also go over to the short section. There's a good number of shots there for you guys to watch. Go and watch all that content. Like I said, when you watch, do not just stop at watching. Like the video, share the video with your friends. If you find it interesting, go to the short section, like what you find, leave a comment in the comment section, and yeah, and let's keep doing that. Let's keep growing, keep supporting the channel, and step by step, we will eventually get there into achieving some of our objectives. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure. I want to wish you a wonderful rest of the a wonderful rest of the day and the week at large. It's always a pleasure to serve you. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.